We're here today to investigate a possible mold problem at this home that we think that's a result of some moisture issues at the house. And we're going to come in and first of all ascertain if there is a mold problem, and if indeed that's the case, then try to find out what the underlying cause is. And always there's going to be some moisture issue. It could be a sudden occurrence like a flood, or it can be more of an ongoing maintenance issue with moisture seeping into the building. What we're doing here is we're getting some outdoor reference samples to compare the indoor air samples with. It's important when you're doing any type of air sampling for mold to also have an outdoor reference sample that's taken at the same time at the same property, because all of our interpretations are based on an indoor to outdoor comparison. And this is a machine that actually measures various size particles in the air. We know that many of the mold spores that we're concerned about fall in the 2 to 5 micron particle size range. So with a laser counter, we can actually see if there's an unusual amount of those size particles in the air indoors versus outdoors, and that suggests the possibility that at least the right size particles are flying around indoors that could be mold. At this point, now we're down in the basement, and we're going to take some indoor samples to compare versus those outdoor samples so we can see if there is an anomaly going on with possible mold issues. We'll also take a similar set of samples up in the living space of the home as well. And it's a bit higher. You know, it's not crazy higher, but those particle counts are a little bit higher. It suggests that there's particle sizes that could possibly be mold spores. So we're also going to collect an indoor spore trap sample to actually look specifically for mold spores. These sample cassettes will be exposed for a metered period of time and then sent to a laboratory for lab analysis. So what we're doing now is using an infrared thermal imaging camera to actually look for temperature differences on the foundation wall, which would also be an indication of moisture or condensation on those walls. So what we're looking for is these dark spots on the thermal image. Again, show areas where apparently we have some moisture. Here's our normal temperature on the wall, and we actually scan down here and we're seeing some dark images. And not surprisingly, when we physically look at the wall, we see some staining and discoloration in that same area. We're looking at the foundation wall below grade, and we see a major thermal difference in that corner. And that's likely the result of water getting in that point of the foundation. And coincidentally, outside we have a gutter runoff downspout that's dumping water right there. So this is not as obvious without the thermal image, but certainly a source of moisture for the basement here. A lot of times you see discoloration. It is mold. Sometimes it can be, a lot of the yellowy looking stuff that's popping out of the wall is more likely a mineral coming through from water coming through the wall. Right here, that little bluish green stuff that I'm lighting up with the light. You can actually see that right there. That's most likely mold, and that's something that we'll take a tape lift of to find out if indeed it is mold. But certainly it has the look that it could be. It looks like, at least visibly, that we do have some mold growing on some of the surfaces here in the wood framing in the basement. We need to confirm that with surface tape lifts. It certainly looks like it could be mold, so what we'll do is we'll take a tape lift to this part of the surface, and we'll analyze that and see what we got. We'll go over here too on this. And again, mount that on a glass slide, and we'll look at that under a microscope. I'm looking at the floor joists, and again we can see where there's evidence. I mean, this is actually a Penicillium species. You can tell just by looking at it under a scope. Considered spore chains. Not something you want to see growing in quantity in your house. You don't ever want to see any mold really growing. So this is it's an issue. See, the wall, what I'm guessing is going to be on that wall, on the foundation wall, is going to be probably a Cladosporium, which is kind of an outdoor, it's mold that we see outdoors all the time. It's real common. And it tends to end up on foundation walls really easy. Just because it's such a common mold, it's flying all over, and if you get a wet wall, it'll grow on it. The interesting part is that the black stuff that we're seeing on the foundation wall in the basement is not what would be considered the toxic black mold. It's actually Cladosporium, which is actually a non-toxic mold. And it's real common on, again, indoor foundation wall surfaces when they get damp. So the homeowner in this case does have some health concerns. So, you know, there's obviously a concern about possible mold in the basement. Mold is a symptom. It's not the cause-all. So there's obviously this underlying moisture problem that's causing the mold here in this home. So it's important to not just correct the existing mold problem and clean it up, but also to get to that underlying cause, correct that moisture problem. And in this case, it appears to be moisture getting into the foundation walls in the basement. So it's really important that you do have gutters on houses to catch the roof water, but then that you also channel that water away from the foundation. You don't want to have the downspout dump right next to it. you.